Hey everybody, welcome back to History Student Reacts. Today we'll be watching Scandalous Popes of the Middle Ages by Sam O'Nella. This sounds like quite a spicy one. Those popes, they certainly got up to some curious business throughout the history of the church, so I'm excited to see what we cover in this video. Now, if you guys end up enjoying this one, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave a like on the video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my Patreon, which is linked down below, and will give you access to exclusive reaction content. Now that all that's out of the way, let's jump right into this reaction.
This video is sponsored by Skillshare.
Alrighty. Sam O'Nella Academy. Scandalous Popes.
Hey kids, time to alienate 23.9% of the United States from my potential audience, because today, we're talking popes. Now don't get me wrong, the modern papacy is a great thing. Just a genuinely virtuous man being elected to govern and set an example for Christians everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's nothing against Catholics or Catholicism, and at its best, I mean, the Pope can be a genuinely positively influential office, can make positive change around the world, set a good example. But you've got to admit, whether you're a Catholic or otherwise, that the popes have gotten up to a lot of shenanigans throughout the history of the church, many of them quite unchristian, frankly. You know, doing a lot of scandalous deeds, as we're going to cover in this video.
That's awesome. But back in the day, not so. See, in the Middle Ages, the church was one of the greatest powers in the Western world, having massive influence over monarchs and laymen alike.
That's true. I mean, look, sort of the position of the church changing has also changed what influence the Pope has. Now, the Pope is still a very influential religious leader today, probably the #1 religious leader in the world still. I mean, there are, of course, other influential religious leaders, I won't deny that, but still to have such a massive flock, to use sort of Christian terminology, that's to have a lot of influence. But, you know, it's less sort of political influence, the influence of, say, having an army, and more the influence of leading by example, religious influence, scriptural influence, that sort of thing. The popes of the Middle Ages, they had some legitimate political and military influence, right? And so the sort of shenanigans they got up to, they could have some pretty wide-ranging ramifications.
And as we know, with great power comes great tomfoolery. Here's some of the less wholesome popes that history has to offer.
Yeah.
Pope Stephen VI assumed the pontificate in May of 896, during a time of great instability for the papacy, where rulers and families of all different shapes and sizes were vying for influence over the Catholic Church. As such, successive popes from this period often had different ideas about how things should be run. Stephen, for example, didn't much care for Pope Formosus, the guy before last. Why? It's complicated. Even if I could wrap my head around all this, it'd probably be boring as hell. So just take it on good faith that Steve had a lot of beef with Formosus.
Okay.
So much beef, or as we call it, papal bull, that Stephen couldn't even be happy that the dude was already dead. So
I was gonna say, you've got beef with this guy, but is he not already dead? Does the beef continue into the afterlife?
he had the 8-month-old corpse of Formosus
No.
dug up, dressed up in Pope
What?
clothes, sat down on a throne, and literally put on trial, with a deacon appointed to give all his responses for him.
I mean, I've heard of having a sort of a trial in absentia, right? Where you try someone who isn't there because, I don't know, they fled for the country or they're not present at the moment. And, I don't know, have I heard of someone getting tried after death? Maybe, maybe not. I could imagine that. But literally digging a corpse up and bringing it to a courtroom or whatever, and then having a trial with it, that's another level.
Throne and literally put on trial, with a deacon appointed to give all his responses for him. So you thought you could get away from the law with that little dying stunt of yours? Well, tell me, Mr. Thrombosis, did you violate canon law, commit perjury, and pretend to be a bishop when you weren't?
Ooh.
Yes, pasta fazool, I am a fool. I've heard all I need to hear. This court finds you guilty, and everything you did as Pope, we legally declare to be fake and dumb and stupid and dumb. Now throw him in the river.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would trust this group to give him the fairest defense, to give a sort of unbiased defense of his actions, given that they've literally dug him up and dragged his corpse back out.
What? The river? Can he do that? See the hat? That means I'm Pope. P-O-O-P Pope. You better 3-point that bitch into the briny deep right quick, or I'm gonna raise hell. metaphorically. So
Plus, I mean, I'm not really an expert on scripture, but this seems pretty sacrilegious to me. I mean, this cannot be good in the eyes of the Lord.
they throw him in the river. This whole thing caused an uproar among Formosa's supporters, and after Formosa's corpse was allegedly seen performing miracles at the riverbank, Stephen ended up being overthrown, imprisoned, and executed by strangulation.
Yeah, not too surprising. I can't imagine that whole stunt was incredibly popular.
The body, now slimy and disgusting, was fished out of the Tiber and reinterred in St. Peter's Basilica, where it rests to this day. Next, we'll talk about John XII. This guy already looks like one of my characters. Why don't we just, yeah, there we go. This guy ascended to the throne when he was just 18 years old, which is insane. If I was elected world's biggest hat wearer at that age, you better believe things would get real unpapal real quick.
Yeah, that's a young pope, and I don't know the exact circumstances of his ascension, but, today, a lot of our popes are very old. But that has not always been the case, or, well, I don't know. I don't know what would happen if you averaged out the age of the pope. I imagine you'd come up with a higher number, but, at different times in history, the position of pope has been very much influenced by some of these surrounding countries, very much influenced by real world politics or money, and so, as we might be seeing here, you've had a lot of characters end up as Pope who probably should not have ended up as Pope. Now, I don't know if John here is one of those guys. I don't know anything about him, but that's definitely been something we've seen.
I'm talking gambling, hookers, setting fires, and toasting to the devil.
Yeah, okay.
And when you know it, these are all things John XII did.
John.
It said that he took the sacred palace and literally made it into a whorehouse. Matter of fact,
Okay, that seems like exactly the opposite of what the Pope should be doing.
while researching the guy, I stumbled across this list of sexually active popes.
Hello?
This is a real Wikipedia article. Take a hike, toilet paper orientation. Daddy's got a new favorite. John is featured prominently on this list, of course. He had a thing for widows for some reason. Personally, I'm not big on weepy old hags. I'm more of a carefree young hag type of guy, but to each their own. He also banged his niece a bunch, which not the most virtuous act,
John.
but, Middle Ages and bloodline, fucking whatever. His playboy lifestyle eventually caught up to him, though, leading to the Synod of Rome, where everyone got together to talk about what a piece of shit he is so they could kick him off the throne. Besides all the deviancy, there was a lot of things they had problems with. For one, someone once offered John...
I will say, at least both John and Stephen ended up getting some sort of comeuppance in the end. It does seem like if you behave too badly as Pope, there is a good chance that the rest of the church will get together and be like, all right, this guy has got to go.
Besides all the deviancy, there was a lot of things they had problems with. For one, someone once offered John some money to ordain a 10-year-old as a bishop, and he was just like, alright, I would have done it for free, honestly. Look how big those robes are on him. That's hilarious.
Yeah, okay, so we've got active corruption as well. And yeah, the deviancy, the active corruption. I mean, there was a lot of corruption going on, but I can imagine John was not too subtle about it. It's not really making for a great pope.
He also had a deacon ordained in a horse stable, just like, oh, for fuck's sake, alright, let's get this over with. Shouldn't we be doing this in, like, a church? Listen, bucko, if it's good enough for Jesus to be born in, it's good enough for you to have your little cardinal party.
It's like a promotion in the field when one of your officers dies and you need to promote someone immediately, but with a deacon instead. I don't know why he needed to be promoted so quickly, but there you go.
Sir, not cardinal, he's just a deacon. Not if you keep running your mouth, you aren't. He also liked going on hunting trips now and then, generally considered to be something popes don't do. Although my suspicion is that they were just tired of cleaning his big stupid camo hat every time. Probably his worst act, though, was putting on a helmet, followed closely in second by the time one of his subdeacons got on his nerves, so he literally cut off his dick and murdered him.
What
so between all this and some conflicts with Otto I of the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah, that's bad news. I talked about how other states have had a lot of influence on the church, right? Because the church used to be an active political player, the papal states. The Holy Roman Empire, at various times, could be one of those states. They're supposed to have a real chummy relationship. That wasn't always the case. You don't want to get on the bad side of Otto here. And also, literally killing a guy, that seems like one of the worst things you could do as Pope. Though, now that I think about it, a lot of popes throughout history, through their actions, have led to the deaths of many people. So maybe it's sort of down the list, to be honest.
John was uncanonically ousted in 963, except as soon as Otto left Rome, nobody was there to pressure him off physically anymore, so John was like, lol, just kidding, rounded up all his groupies, kicked the new pope off the throne, and continued his role like nothing happened by early 964. But just a few months later, fate caught up with John, and he died the way he lived, committing adultery.
What the hell?
Later, fate caught up with
I
John,
gotta see
and he
this.
died the way he lived, committing adultery.
John died whilst enjoying an adulterous sexual encounter outside of Rome, either as the result of apoplexy or at the hands of an outraged husband. Wow, that's, I will say, that is quite a difference, depending on which one of those two it was. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, I guess, like he said, he died doing what he loved, which, once again, not incredibly papal of him.
Adultery. Now let's be real, we all have our little guilty pleasures in life. Some people like a nice bag of Cheetos, others like scented candles, or poorly drawn educational videos. Alexander VI liked watching horses fuck.
What the?
According to Vatican chronicler Johann Burckhardt, he would specifically arrange for his stallions to be introduced to mares in heat outside his palace, and he'd stand up on his balcony to watch them violently mate, which just tickled him pink for some.
What the hell? They're like, wow, Pope, you've taken a real interest in breeding the horses. You know, are you interested in horse racing? He's like, not that exactly. I've got, other interests, you could say. Oh, God.
Some fucking reason, and he'd laugh uproariously during the entire spectacle.
What?
He also once threw a party in the palace called the Banquet of Chestnuts, also referred to as the Joust of Whores.
Huh?
Wait a minute. Horse jousting. Horses banging. Was dyslexia a thing back then? Nah, but during the banquet, Alexander had 50 of Rome's finest raggedy harlots line up and strip down for him and his guests, which,
What?
by the way, included 2 of his children, which, by the way, he had many children, but at this point hardly a concern. Guests began throwing chestnuts at the ladies, who got down on their hands and knees and scrambled frantically, like the cook at Denny's when I held him at gunpoint, trying to collect as many as they could. After this went on for a while, Alexander was like, alright kiddos, game time. Whoever can bang the most broads before the night's over wins Rome's finest silks, and the only condition is that anybody who makes a joke about nutting on someone's chest gets disqualified. It's too easy. This is all according to that one Johann guy, mind you. Some secondary sources differ pretty significantly.
Very interesting. So, let's see what happened here. Others rejected the rumors. Alexander's essentially decent but maligned character doesn't sound decent. Holy. So we've got a confirmation here, a denial, disprove the most lurid details of the papal orgy. Yeah, I guess we don't exactly know. 50 honest prostitutes, clothed and nude. Okay, so this one seems a little vague, but seems like something a little unpapal happened. You know, I think it's difficult when you're doing something like this because obviously the church has a lot of interest in denying a lot of this, so I'm sure they try and go through the sources and maybe sometimes honestly are like, look, we have not found evidence of this, but also you can imagine how they'd want to be like, nah, this didn't happen. But seems like this one I'm not entirely sure, but wow, there was a lot of impropriety going on. Maybe this is what happens when you're the most repressed man in the world, the Pope. Though, a lot of these popes were not really that repressed, given what they were up to.
On the more lurid details of all this, so do take it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, this guy was the official record taker for the ceremonies he was involved with, so it seems equally likely to me that the other guys just wanted to save a bit of face, but who knows.
Yeah, it could go either direction, right? Maybe enemies of the current pope are writing up lies, or maybe over-exaggerating things that really did happen, or maybe allies of the Pope or the Church today are trying to disprove, perhaps honestly, perhaps not. I mean, yeah, I don't really know. I'm not an expert in this. In fact, I know nothing about it. If you are, then you'll have to dig into all the sources, compare them, try to corroborate to the best of your ability, but this type of thing can be challenging.
In the end, primary sources are usually the most reputable source of information. After all, what better way to learn about stuff than from people who have direct experience in the subject?
Mm-hmm.
That's why you need to try Skillshare. Skillshare is an
Ab-
online learning community with over
All right.
25,000 classes in design.
Here we
The first
go. We've
five
got a link. I very much doubt this is active at all. It's been years since this video, but hey, I'll leave Sam and Ella's video linked down below. You can go give him a like, subscribe, check out his sponsor, all that good stuff. A lot of his videos are older, but of course, Sam and Ella's still active. We got a new video relatively recently. It's been a bit now, but yeah, so you know what? Scandalous popes, there was certainly a lot of scandal. Like I said, a lot of impropriety. Yeah, I didn't quite expect this much sort of lurid detail in particular, but that is a lot of what we got. Turns out, I said from the beginning, a lot of the popes got up to some pretty strange shenanigans. We definitely saw some of them in this video. And I will say, beyond those shenanigans, a lot of the popes got up to serious geopolitical activity, which involved stuff like making war, which doesn't seem very pope-like to me either. But anyway, the institution of the papacy is a very different one today than it once was. So there you go. If you guys enjoyed this one, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave a like, subscribe to the channel, check out my Patreon, which is linked down below, give you access to exclusive content. With all that, hope you guys are having a great day today, and I'll see you all again next time. Goodbye.